Back again with another Spider-Man video. This time it's about Jason Reynolds' Miles Morales novel. In this video I will attempt to examine the novel through a young adult literature lens by answering 3 questions put forth by Roberta Selinger-Treitz in her essay, Do I Dare Disturb the Universe? First question. When are teenagers in young adult literature allowed to assume responsibility for their own action, and when do dominating adults refuse to acknowledge their abilities? In the context of this novel, it is when teenagers break the law or go against establishments. In the very first scene, we see Miles being grounded for getting suspended after leaving class without the teacher's permission. In Miles' defense, he was really desperate to go to the toilet, though in reality it was his spider sense going crazy. However, despite his very reasonable reasons, his parents are having none of it. A suspension means getting grounded, no matter how unreasonable the reason. Miles' father knows of his powers, and yet he tries to push this knowledge away and acted like his son's power doesn't exist. He refuses to acknowledge Miles' capabilities and in fact seems to push Miles away from superhero work. At school, Miles' classmate and crush, Alicia, made a bold statement in defiance to the history teacher, Mr. Chamberlain, in response to his racist claims. And Mr. Chamberlain is also the same man who had Miles suspended earlier. He, of course, also suspends her, despite her peaceful and honestly, brilliant attempt at getting her voice heard. Second question. How do adolescent characters navigate the power structures in their environment? If we want to talk about power structures and power balances, we have to talk about space. In their essay, The Youth Lens, Patron, Sarignanides, and Lewis suggest that space plays a major part in the power relations of young adult literature. And this is what I want to highlight. In the first chapter, we have a scene where Miles is at home, being grounded, and he is at the mercy of his parents. His father is very strict of him, and he does not like it, when Miles speak out against him. At school, we again see Miles at the mercy of adults, this time his teachers. Miles always finds constant pressure from Mr. Chamberlain and the dean of the school. Mr. Kushner is a pushover and seems to be out to get Miles every chance he has. It seems only his English teacher, Miss Blaufus, that gives him any semblance of voice through poetry. At home and at school, Miles navigates the power structures with caution because he fears that upsetting people with authority will get him either grounded, suspended, or expelled. Outside of school, however, where things get interesting, because Miles finds agency and power when he is outside of these environments. And this is where I argue that Spider-Man is inherently carnivalesque, more so in the context of Spider-Man, Miles Morales. Miles finds his release when he finds himself putting on his Spider-Man suit. His suit is his symbol of his agency and power. By putting on his suit, his restraints are gone, and he is free to do whatever he likes, but only when he puts on the suit. You see, Mr. Chamberlain is very explicit in his racism and his attempt to dehumanize people of color. He is one of the many in the League of Chamberlains that is comprised of racist people in authority who are under the command of the Warden, a supervillain who can use psychic powers. This Warden taunts people in their dreams to provoke violent acts with the hope of driving young Black Americans out of school and into jail. In the context of Miles Morales, Miles keeps having this dream of when his Uncle Aaron died. Uncle Aaron is of course the Uncle Ben of the Spider-Man mythos. Anyway, these people, the Chamberlains and the Warden, they represent the power that be that actively tries to deny and disengage the power and agency of young people of color. And here's the thing, the real villain in this novel is not a bad guy in spandex wearing a mask, running around, killing people, shooting people, or robbing people. No, it is the Mr. Chamberlains of society, the people that propagates systemic sort of violence against people of color, people like Miles Morales and Alicia. At the end of the day, to Mr. Chamberlain and men like him, Miles will remain just a black Puerto Rican kid that has no hope of success and no future, destined for jail. Alas, like many superheroes before him, he cannot defeat bigotry like that, even when he finally defeated the Warden. He might be able to solve, a few racially charged crimes as Spider-Man, but he cannot solve such a deep societal issue on his own. Thus, the power that Spider-Man has, the power that Miles Morales has as Spider-Man, is denied and disengaged. However, the novel ends with a hopeful note, one that mirrors the Black Lives Matter movement we had in 2020. In the final pages of the novel, we see a protest from Miles, Alicia, and the rest of the class, reclaiming their agency and fighting back against a system that accepts superheroes better than it accepts people of color. Through this scene, the novel re-acknowledges adolescent power by showing the true power of young people, their voice. At that moment, we see that it is in fact Miles, the black Puerto Rican boy, that has the real power to enact change, not Miles, the Spider-Man.